Hi, welcome to the Rams Agents Production Coaching Call. The goal of the call is to help you sell more homes by maximizing your repeating referral closings by implementing the Referral Agent Mastery System into your practice. My name is Mike Cerrone, co-founder of Rams Agents, and my co-host is Angela Newman, a master trainer of Rams Agents. Hello, Angela. How are you today?
Good morning, gang. I am doing great. How about you guys?
Doing fantastic, doing fantastic. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump in. Who's got some good news they'd like to share?
Got some good news. I got a buyer client yesterday to look at one of my houses. She wasn't represented by an agent and they like the house, so it might be an opportunity to double in. They're going to book another appointment on the weekend when they can see the property in the daytime and bring some of their additional family members. So it's looking good.
Oh, congratulations, Tristan. So you said double in. So this is a buyer on one of your listings?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's fantastic. Good luck with that. Make sure you make full disclosures at the very beginning so everybody knows where you stand and whatever your policy is in your area and following your area rules. Um, Beyond that, that's fantastic. Good luck. And we should always be looking for those opportunities to double into our own listings and be a traditional broker in the old-fashioned idea, the broker bringing parties together, a seller and buyer, and bringing them together. When I was doing high volume and selling the 113 homes in that year, I double-ended 25% of my own listings. So absolutely possible. And a lot of people do that. So good job, Tristan. Can't wait to hear more about that. That's good news. All right. Anybody else got some good news you'd like to share?
Yesterday, we got a lead on one of our listings as well, kind of a similar situation, and they wanted to see it yesterday afternoon, and Patty went and showed it to them. And they said that they had looked at some other properties, all with listing agents, which was interesting. They weren't currently working with an agent, they were pre-approved already. And then they were going to review everything and then we'll touch base today.
Fantastic. That's great. So that's really interesting. So you got a buyer who's looking at purchasing a property. They're going directly to buyer agent to listing agents. They don't have a buyer agent. And you were one of the listing agents they popped in on to take a look. Are they owner occupant? Are they non-owner occupant? Are they investor? What are they doing?
Owner occupant.
Owner occupant. Have they purchased before?
I did not ask that question. So that's a good question. I am not sure,
Did you ask
but
them why they're going unrepresented?
I did not. So again, really good questions.
Yeah, and think about the way that they're phrased, right? Unrepresented.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like you're missing something, right? And they are.
That'll be a good question when I talk to them again today then. Yeah, so.
And it's good to ask rather than jump in and go, oh, you're really missing out. You need to have an agent. An agent can really help you out. And instead, ask them questions. Why are you going unrepresented? What do you believe the advantage is to being unrepresented? Why
Mm-hmm.
have you chosen this course of action versus others? Because you may learn something. Maybe they had a really bad experience in the past with an agent. Maybe they read it in a book. Maybe their uncle recommended that they do it. Maybe they think they're going to get a better price. Well, you should ask them kind of what and learn from them. Why are they coming at it this way? Why are they approaching it this way?
Yeah, I mean, the initial mind conversation with them was about 15 minutes, and we got to know each other pretty well, just as far as, on a personal level. And I asked a lot of the main questions. I didn't want to go too deep because we were on the phone for a little while, but I bet that Patty probably asked some additional questions, and then today on the call. Yeah, those are great questions to kind of, I guess, if they're not working with somebody, why not?
Yeah, and you may end up picking up a buyer client, right? That's kind of why you're going down the path, and just curiosity, because it is an interesting step. Maybe they're a salesperson from another industry. Maybe they're an attorney. Um, Maybe they're an old agent, or they're an agent from another market. There's all kinds of reasons, and by asking the questions, you'll find out where they're coming from and if there's an opportunity for you by digging and getting that information. But good job. I can't wait to. Oh, and I guess the other thing I should need to say, although all of our states are different, I assume you had to make a disclosure to them at the beginning that you represent the seller.
Correct.
Yeah, and do you get that in
And
writing?
no, we did not, because in our state, if we are showing the property on behalf of the seller, we don't have to get it in writing. I know that in some states you do, but
Good, good. Yeah, that's for us, that's a big red flag, a big issue to make sure the very first thing you tell them is, hey, I represent the seller. Don't tell me any secrets. You know,
mhm.
you want to go unrepresented, go ahead, but um, make sure you know that I don't work for you. I work for the seller. All right, now that we've talked about that, let's go check out the house. Okay, and go
Yes,
through.
yeah. And
All
we
right,
did have that conversation on the phone that I'm the listing agent. Do you have an agent that you're working with? No. Okay, well, as a listing agent, I can definitely open the house for you and let you see inside. Are you pre-approved? And we went through those questions. But good point. Now that we know they're unrepresented, and I have that call. We can. There's other options if we did want to work with them that we can make that happen. So,
good job, Angela. Um, I'll just emphasize that for me, if I were in that situation, I'd really push hard that at the beginning, see, how do I want to say this? A lot of agents will be afraid to tell the buyer, I represent the seller, I don't represent you. I work for the seller, not you. I'm going to try to get the best deal for the seller, not you, in that early conversation because they're afraid they're going to scare the buyer away or something. I would look at it a different way. I look at it from the perspective of number one, I'm making full disclosure so things don't come back and bite me. So I'm going to overemphasize the fact that I don't work for them and that I am going to work really hard to get the best deal for the seller and that they shouldn't tell me any secrets because I'll use them against them. I'll use those secrets against them in the negotiations. I would overemphasize that, number one, so they have clarity, and number two, they realize they're wading into dangerous waters as an unrepresented buyer. And that may cause them to then investigate whether they should be represented. See, to me, it's a double win by actually pushing into the facts, into the situation, not trying to hide them.
that's good points. Yeah. And I would probably say something like, uh, just, I want to make sure you understand that as the listing agent, I represent the seller, and that means that I'm going to act on their best interest. I will be guiding them, giving them recommendations. And you, as an unrepresented person, when you're going directly to the listing agent, you are basically just a part of the transaction and you do not have representation. So I really strongly suggest that you have somebody on your side that is going to be able to give you good advice, make sure that you're not overpaying, run numbers for you, be very strategic with your offer to get you the best offer. And then with Patty and I in our situation, that's where Patty and I would kind of separate. And I could let them work
Patty's your
directly with
buyer
Patty.
agent on your team.
Yes. And then I can continue on as representing the seller's agent. But yeah, it's really good to work through it with you before I make that call today, just to make sure that I have everything, in place that I want to say, because I may only get 5 minutes to have that conversation with them. So,
Angela, you're doing a great job. I really liked how you laid down the situation for them. Uh, the thing that I would do right at the end of that, you gave a great statement, and then right at the end of the statement, rather than say, "Hey, do you want to work with Patty?" I would drop a question in there, and I'd
mhm,
say, uh, "Do you want to get representation before you take a look at this home? Do you want to go find an agent and get someone to represent you before you look at this property? If so, I completely understand." And then be quiet and let them think about it. Because if they say, no, no, I want to do it on my own, go great. See, now you've got clarity with them. They know the situation. You can move forward. Or they say, no, yeah, I want to, you know what? I better go talk to someone. Say, fantastic. Can I give you a recommendation for someone to talk to? Her name is Patty, here, whatever, right? So you can go down that
mhm,
path as well. By asking that question and getting them to make a decision, now you can move forward. Um,
mhm.
if I could
Awesome.
get, go ahead.
No, I was just saying awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So if sounds like you would like to proceed, uh, would you like to get representation? Do you have somebody in mind? No, I don't. I want to do this on my own. Okay, well, we can definitely get you into the house and show it to you. Or I can also connect you with a buyer agent that would be able to give you representation. And that way you're not doing this all on your own, something like that.
A big idea here is control the conversation with questions. You'll learn a lot
Mm-hmm.
and you can guide the conversation where you want to go. I know you're really good at this, Angela, and your past experiences. But for everyone listening, whoever they are, wherever they are, uh, if you learn to ask great questions and stay in curiosity, you're going to do very well. You're going to connect with people. You're going to learn their situations. You're also going to take the conversations where you want to take the conversations by guiding them with questions. So at the end of that, a little dialogue with them, the question would be, would you like me to recommend a great buyer agent?
Mm-hmm.
Get them to make decisions. Just stay in curiosity, control
Mm-hmm.
questions. Um, and that's true on all these situations and interactions with any lead or client. Um, I guess that would be my final thought for you, Angela, is treat them like one of your clients. I know you have the OCR, and when you're working with an actual client, and even though they're not a client, use that in your dialogue, even with leads, right? Give them options. You tell me OCR. Did I get that right? I'm trying to remember the OCR formula. Yeah, tell me
Yes.
what it stands for again.
Options, consequences, and recommendations. And then you end it with what is best for you or what would you like to do?
Yeah, such a great structure for how to approach decisions for your clients. All right, cool. Thank you, Angela. Thanks for sharing. Um, all right, anybody else have any good news you'd like to share?
I had a question. Is multiple representation illegal in America?
You mean where you're representing both the buyer and seller at the same time?
Right.
Yeah, that's state by state, Tristan. It's state by state. So we got 50 states, you got 50 different answers. And by the way, a lot of the states are the same, but each state's going to make their own decision on how they want to handle that. In the I'm in Colorado, and when I started way back in 1993, we were just starting to experiment. I think we were one of the first states, if not the first state, but definitely one of the very first states to experiment with licensing and these kind of questions. Prior to that, everybody represented the seller and a thing called seller subagency. So even if you were standing next to the buyer, you represented the seller. Okay, that was the old days. And then in 93 here, the year I entered, they changed the rules and they said, hey, we're going to create this new thing called buyer agency was around, but it wasn't formalized. So they said, we're going to create this new thing called buyer agency and seller agency. And then at that point, they created a thing called transaction broker where you're neutral. And they also created a thing called dual agency where you actually represented both parties. And by the way, it actually functions very well if you knew how to keep your hat on, right? You knew how to make these full disclosures. The problem was when agents weren't making full disclosure, they were scared to tell everybody what's going on. That's when you ran into problems. And because of that, there were problems. And so now in our state, we don't do dual agency anymore, even though they did it for probably 15 years, maybe 20 years before they stopped. So they experimented with it for a long time. There are other states that don't allow dual agency. Some states do. And then there are also other terms. I've heard intermediary and so forth. So you really have to be aware of your own laws in your own state. And it's really important if you travel to another state to buy property or for yourself or someone you know, make sure that they understand what the laws and the rules are there when they're dealing with agents. That's why Angela has to make this full disclosure to the buyer, because the buyer may not be aware of what the situation is in her state.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying.
That's a great question. And I'm sure Canada's the same way. Can you do these things in Canada?
Yeah, in my province you can, but like you said, each province has their own regulations.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Yevon says, I'm doing the second month, second dual agency. Oh, so Yevon, who's on the call with us, just said he's doing his second dual agency of the month. So second buyer and connecting the buyer and seller through dual agency. Good job, Yevon. So there you go. And that's, I believe, in Illinois. So every state is different. And know your rules. And the other thing there is just make sure you get a lot of clarity. Again, I'm not your attorney. I'm not giving you legal counsel. Just know your rules, know the state laws. And if you get confused, ask your broker. Make sure you're creating lots of clarity for the people you're interacting with. And whenever possible, get them to sign off, because people say, I don't remember you saying that, right? And it's true, it's hard. You tell me, what was the conversation you had with your best friend 3 years ago and 6 days ago? Tell me exactly what you said to them. Come on, every single word, tell me. I can't remember. I don't know. And that's your best friend, right? So that's why you want to get it in writing whenever possible. All right, good. All right, anybody else got some good news they'd like to share?
I had, excuse me, I had on that rental property that we flipped to market it as a mountain retreat. We had an offer on that, and then we countered, and then the whole deal fell apart because it turns out that the buyer couldn't qualify even for his first offer. We had a pre-approval letter, not a, I'm sure, not a fully underwritten one, of course, but we did have a pre-approval letter. But that was, that whole thing fell apart, and I was getting clarity because from the buyer's agent, because I was trying to make sure I understood that it wasn't because we went back with a counter that blew the deal up. That was not it at all. She said, but actually turns out that he can't buy it at all. And he's got to work out some things. So clearly he had not, his lender had not asked all the questions or had not spent much time with him. But that lender is going down on my list as somebody that I've got to call and really interrogate if I ever get another pre-approval letter from him. In the meantime, another buyer has emerged, and we've got a showing set for this coming Monday. So this is just fine. We're working on it with somebody else.
This is a great story, Blake. This is a great. Thank you so much for bringing this to us. Right? Don't be afraid to bring these crashed situations. Right? These things that don't work out. It doesn't always have to be bragging that everything worked fantastic. I love this story because this is so important. And I think it's one of the reasons that I was so successful at selling so many properties. One of the factors, and that is you have to do your due diligence with these buyers when they come in. Um, as you just discovered, lenders, uh, they want the deal to go through like everybody else. And so they'll write up a lender letter and they may or may not have all the information in there. They may or may not have done all of their own work, their due diligence, their investigation of this buyer. And what you need to do is you need to, number one, not just accept the letter, okay? This piece of paper. It's nice, it documents things, you can put it in your file, but you need to take the next step, which is to vet the buyer. Go talk to the lender. Don't talk to the buyer agent, all right? They're going to give the flowery story, and that's great. That's their job. Go talk to the lender and really dig into what's going on with this buyer and their situation. And the way you do it is just like we've been talking about. You just ask a lot of questions. You're first of all, read the letter and ask a lot of questions. I'll give you an example. I just received an offer a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, and the buyer came in. We had been sitting on the market for man, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 weeks, a long time. My seller's getting nervous, and the buyer finally shows up, and your instinct is let's slam this thing together. And I start looking at the lender letter, and in the very bottom corner, it makes a little reference, kind of a generic statement. It says something about need to pay off, need to sell the old home, or need to pay off the old home loan or something. And I'm like, that's kind of a general statement because it was mixed in with some other stuff. But I didn't just accept that. I asked the agent, what is this statement? And he's like, oh yeah, they don't need to do that anymore. And I said, need to do what anymore? He said, they don't need to sell and pay off their old mortgage anymore. I said, are you saying they have an old mortgage? Are they going to keep 2 homes at the same time? And he said, yes. And I said, can they do that? And he said, oh yeah, they can do that, no problem. I said, if you run the numbers to make sure that they can qualify and own both homes at the same time. Well, I think I did. I said, you think you did? Could you please go back and check that? And after you do, rewrite this letter and send it back to me, stating that they do not have to sell their old property to still qualify for the new one. And he said, yeah, let me work on that and get it to you in the morning. This was late in the day. And I said, sure, send that over to me first thing in the morning. It was also VA. It was a VA purchase, and the old loan was VA, which I asked him about. So now you got a secondary problem with stretching their, I'm trying to remember the term, that their ability over the both properties, because they only have a certain amount of, anybody who does a lot of VA can tell me what that term is. Anyway, you just know these little things, you're trying to piece them together. Well, the lender comes back the next day and he says, oh, I ran their numbers and they cannot qualify for both properties at the same time. But don't worry, they've got their home under contract and it's going to close. I said, great. I'd like to see a copy of the contract. Oh, I don't have it. Oh, how do you know they're going to sell their property? I said, what's the address of the property? I don't know. Okay. Can we get the listing to show me that's even listed? Right? And as I dug into that, it turns out it never was on the market. They had some kind of family agreement to sell it. It was this big giant quagmire. And bottom line, this buyer could not purchase the property even though they had a lender letter. Right? That's why you got to really dig and figure out what's going on and ask a lot of questions. I'd rather find out up front before I negotiate a deal together that it's not going to close than 2-3 weeks into the deal and then the whole thing's blowing up. Does that make sense? So Blake, you digging in and figuring out what's going on early is super smart. Don't be afraid to do that. Never accept the lender letter at face value. Always dig. You're saving yourself and your client a lot of pain and probably liability for you. And if not legal liability, at least the liability of your relationship with your client. You know, if you let that thing go for 3 weeks and it blows up, your client's going to be like, why did you do that? What's going on? And you could end up um, losing your client. They could end up firing you. So Yevon asked, could you please tell the questions we can ask the lender? Sure. I have an advantage because I ran a mortgage company. But even way before I ran a mortgage company, I was asking these kind of questions to lenders just when I was a real estate agent, and you just kind of learn them as you go. So some of the good questions to ask, as an example, are if you what you want to do is just take a little bit of time at some point and learn the lending process, and then you can ask where they are in the process. That's kind of how I think about it. So I just ask the lender, hey, have these people made application with you? You know, have they filled out the application, okay, to get a loan? Because you'd be surprised, especially in the old days, a lot of times they've not done that. They've only talked on the phone for a few minutes, and they've only gotten preliminary information, and this lender letter is based on nothing but air, right? So you ask, hey, have they made an application? Have you pulled a credit report? Have you done any verifications? So verifications is where they receive a copy of their pay stub, as an example. Okay, they verify their bank accounts. Okay, so have you done any verifications? Have you confirmed any of this information that you've heard? A really good one is, have they gone through automated underwriting? Right? Have they gone through an underwriting system yet? So in the last couple of decades, they've come up with automated underwriting, which means that the lender has entered some of the preliminary information and they've sent it through a computer program, automated underwriting, that will do a little preliminary underwriting and say, hey, based on the information you've given me so far, these people can buy this and that and close with this loan or that loan under these situations. So that's automated underwriting. And that's fantastic because it usually incorporates their credit report and some of their ratios. And a lot of times they have done that today, but make sure they have. They might not have. If they've gone through automated underwriting, that's good. They've gone further down the path. And then after automated underwriting, you're asking about verifications to confirm that all the information that went in for the underwriting is accurate. Sometimes if a lender is really good, they'll push these people all the way to a manual underwrite, which means this thing has gone in front of a human person, an underwriter, who's reviewed their file and said, yeah, all this information is correct. All you now have to do is plug in a property. That's rare, but if you get them that far, you have a very, very strong buyer. Does that make sense? You're trying to figure out where they are on that continuum. Are they just somebody who's walked in and met the lender today? And that's, by the way, part of the other issue with this last one I was dealing with. They just met the buyer within the last couple of days. They didn't really know them well enough, hadn't done enough vetting. So have you talked to the buyer? Sometimes with these online lenders, they may never have even talked to the buyer. Have you talked to the buyer? Right? What information do you have? How far along are they in the process? Other questions to ask: do they have to sell a home in order to buy this one? See, I found that out from the lender. The agent never told me that. The agent in our contract, you're supposed to say whether they have to sell another property in order to purchase this one, whether it's contingent. There's a space for it in our contract. They did not indicate that they had to sell a home. I had to find that out on my own. It turns out the agent was new to the transaction because the buyer had switched agents. So the agent didn't know that. They didn't know they had to sell another property. They were unaware of the fact there was another property out there when they wrote the offer. So the agent didn't have all the information, the buyer's agent. Does all this make sense? Is this helpful? You need to dig in on this, all the information that you receive. If I get a cash offer, I am not accepting that as true. I am going to want to see bank statements. I'm going to want to talk to the banker and make sure that the money is there, or the stock company, the stockbroker, whoever it is where the stock is that's going to be sold to turn it into cash to buy this thing. you'll see that. And especially with scams, there are scams out there. I'm talking about legitimate people. There's even scammers out there. Of course, they're going to really try to force this. So you really need to dig in before you lock your property up with a buyer who can't close. Ask me how I learned this. I locked properties up with buyers who couldn't close. You learn really fast. I don't want to do that again. All right, good job. Oh, thank you, Yevon. And if you have any specific questions, let me know. But that's what you do. You dig. Here's a great piece of advice in that world. Go sit down with your lender. You probably have a lender that you like, maybe two, and just take them out to lunch or go to their office and sit down with them and say, hey, look, I don't want to become a lender. I want you to keep being a lender, but I want to understand the process. Can you walk me through what happens when a buyer comes in and wants to get a loan? Can you walk me through from the time you meet them all the way to the closing table and tell me all the things that happen? And then you just write down what's going on and you make a mental note. They may even have a document they could give you, and you're just walking through the process. And then the question you want to ask is, where did these things go wrong? Where do they blow up? What kind of problems do you run into? Believe me, they have 100 stories, they'll tell you. And now you just learned 100 experiences from them without actually having to live them. Your wisdom went way up. Your knowledge base went way up, so that you bump into a situation you may or may not know all the actual details, but you know you just stepped on a landmine, and you can go and ask somebody, hey, this just happened. What do you think I need to do with this? Anyway, hopefully that's been helpful. Thanks for bringing that up, Blake, and good luck with that. Hopefully your second buyer comes through. And again, I'm really happy for you that you didn't get that locked up with the wrong buyer and lose time. All right, good. Anybody else have any other good news they want to share? Anybody else have a topic you want us to address while we're all here together?
I guess I just wanted to add something. Oh, see, sorry, Blake. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tristan. Go ahead and add something.
Yeah, so I know a few of us are working with like investor clients and we have to find tenants and stuff. But what I found that's been working for me great lately is Facebook Marketplace. So it's a great way to represent, I guess, both parties, like to find the tenant instead of waiting on other realtors to bring the tenant. So I have a client that bought a home. They're closing in December. But in where I live, you need to give 60 days notice to the landlord. So they've made a deal with their landlord that if they can get it rented before that extra month, they don't have to pay that additional month. So I asked the agent if I could advertise the property and I put it on Facebook Marketplace. And this morning I woke up to like 5 messages of different people. So I used this as well on my own investment property last week that I was able to find a tenant. And it's a good way, I think, to find some potential clients if you're working with investors or yeah, tenants. Just wanted to add that.
Tristan, this is great information. So in Facebook Marketplace, is there a place for landlord tenant type things, like somebody who's looking for a place to rent, somebody who has a place to rent? If so, if somebody was listening, they wanted to do what you did, where would they go to find that?
Yeah, so you go to like add a listing, and then it's gonna say what is the item you're selling? Is it automotive, electronic, or a home? And then you just click the home, and then you just upload the pictures, copy and paste the description, and then leads will start to come in. And then it's up to you, I guess, to vet the leads and stuff and get their supporting documents. But
You said
um,
home. Is it is it just generic like that? And do you have to put like a special title? Like what did you put in the title so they knew that this was a place for rent or a place to yeah, a place for rent for a tenant?
yeah, so it does all of that automatically. So you click the home, and then it goes like townhouse, apartment, house, and then you click that, and then you click the bedrooms and bathrooms, and then that will determine like the headline of what they make, like 3 bedroom house, 2 bathroom. And then yeah, you just add the description and the pictures.
So you went into like the for rent section, is that it? You went in as a landlord or as somebody who has property for rent?
Right. It says like for sale or for rent, and then you just click for rent. but I'm gonna try it as well with my listing to see if I can maybe find some buyers as well. So I'm gonna experiment with that this week since I'm gonna be home a bit more with the new baby and stuff.
Yeah, by the way, congratulations, Tristan. They just had it. Well, his wife just had a new baby. They had a new baby together this weekend. Congratulations, Tristan. Baby
Thanks, man.
girl.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Woo! Now you got to work harder.
That's it. That's it.
Got some motivation. That's awesome. So going back to the Facebook Marketplace hint and tip, by the way, which was awesome. Thank you for bringing that to everybody. Did you notice that did you put anything special in like the headline or a special picture? Do you think there was anything that made you get such a great reaction, or was it just fluke, right? I mean, you just kind of threw it in there and it happened, or did you do something special that would be a tip for anybody else listening that they want to get faster results?
It's easy to stand out because most of the ads that are on there are by like the landlords themselves. So it's a lot of iPhone pictures and stuff like that. So when you have like professional MLS pictures that have been retouched and stuff, it definitely stands out and makes the property look much better in comparison to like people that aren't professionals or people that are writing like their own descriptions for the first time. So I noticed like the properties that are posted by realtors, they definitely stand out on that platform compared to on like realtor.com and stuff.
That's awesome. And I assume that you got permission from the listing agent to use those photos. That was one of your things you were asking them when you said, "Hey, can I promote this as a rental property?"
Exactly, yeah.
Cool. Now I know there are a couple other people here that deal in investor deals and rentals. Do you all have any questions or comments about Tristan's idea to go on Facebook Marketplace?
I do have a thought and a word of caution, specifically about Facebook Marketplace. I think what Tristan's doing is great, um, and it is clearly a good place to acquire potential tenants. But what I have had happen to me twice on my own properties, and also another instant when my daughter was trying to rent some property, where it's a fake Facebook Marketplace listing. My photos or legitimate photos of a vacant house are used. And the way the scam basically works is, oh, we've got to move fast on this. I've already got some applications. I need your deposit right now. Basically, they're trying to acquire a deposit. There's a good, I don't know if it's a good workaround, but it's a helpful thing that I've learned is that I now, if I have a property that's vacant for rent, I have my website in watermark on every photo so that if a photo is lifted, at least it's not going to be just a cut and paste kind of situation for the criminal. But that's exactly what it is. And I had some people at a recent property. I had it listed to rent, and I think I actually had a renter already in process, but I had already, I mean, I had it under contract or whatever for rent. But I had picked up my sign and just, I didn't happen to put it in the car or anything that day, but I just put it at the back of the house. Well, I got a call the next day from someone who was walking around the property, found my sign, and decided to call me off of that sign because they had been talking to the landlord, so to speak, and that they were almost about to send their money to this person. And you know, when it's a vacant property, it's pretty easy for them to pull it off. Anyway, so that's just a word of caution. That wouldn't change Tristan's deal. It's just something you need to be aware of, and you kind of want to take precautions so that you don't end up with somebody getting scammed, even though it's not your, you know, it's not like you're the one doing the scamming. But if you can do some precautions like putting that watermark on the photographs, then it'll help prevent some scams.
Blake, that's good information to know. And I'm sorry, you might have said it and I missed it. What kind of watermark are you adding? What is the watermark? Is it a word? Is it a picture? What is it, the watermark itself that you're
In
using?
my case, I am actually putting through in it at my website, the website where the listing is going to be listed, or even my real estate website, just a website, athomechattanooga.com. That's the one I use on there. And I just put it across the photo with it's just transparent, so it doesn't really interfere that much with the photo, but it's there. And you'll notice other people doing that. Property management companies do it all the time, and it's because they know what's going on. And so you'll see property management companies all the time putting their website or their company name in a watermark that kind of makes it where you can't even crop the picture. They'll put it across the front of the picture.
Hmm. That's good information, Blake. Thank you so much.
When there were pictures off of Zillow, by the way, it's not, I've never listed anything for rent on Facebook Marketplace. I think it's a great idea, but I have never done that. I had them on Zillow, and they were pulling the pictures off Zillow, putting them on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, I
I have
wonder
a
if
couple
there's probably.
questions.
Go ahead, Angela.
So what tool are you using to put the watermark on it? Are you doing that in Canva or?
I was trying to remember, Angela. I think I just did it in Canva. It must have been because I just basically put text on it and then made the text transparent. And you just
Mhm.
make transparency enough that it looks, it's not ruining the picture, but it's also not something that a casual observer is going to miss.
Mhm. Okay, and then also question, so a lot of the rentals I'll post in MLS, which will syndicate to like Zillow and stuff, and they don't allow any watermarks. So do you do it separately or?
I have not ever put a rental in the MLS, so that's a great idea or great thought. So I haven't thought about that.
Tulsa does not really have a strong rental MLS presence. Houston, however, does. It's like a huge rental area where agents rent a lot. Okay.
That's
Well,
pretty minimal. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, cool. That's a great idea. I have had that happen many times over the years. I've even had a listing where somebody met them at the house and got the check and just said, "Oh, I forgot the keys. I'll get you
Wow.
the keys tomorrow." Yeah.
Yeah, it shows just how far they've gone. They actually went and met them and got the check. My daughter was working with someone. It was actually one of her workmates. They were looking to move in together and be roommates and all this. So the workmate is really the one that was leading the search. Um, but they actually had a lockbox code, and the criminal had the lockbox code. So they did a self-guided tour of the property. Couldn't believe it. They were inside the property.
Wow. A lot of times you can get that code, like some agencies will set up that self-guided tour. And if one person gets the code, then they're like, yeah, score. I get
Yeah.
to show it to a lot of people.
So
Um,
I had my daughter call the property management company and tell them what had happened so that they could, at the very least, keep changing their codes on a regular basis.
mhm. Good point. Well, one thought I had is that watermark on your photos is great branding.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Anyway, that doesn't take away from Tristan's success. It's just a thought about the criminal activity that you try to avoid.
Yeah, but I think I'm definitely going to try that posting it. It's been a while since I've done it. I have done it, but I like the watermark idea too.
Cool. Good job, everyone. Thank you for the information. And Tristan, thanks for bringing that idea to everybody. All right, we've got a few minutes left. Are there any other burning issues you want the group to focus on before we break?
I have a couple of buyers, buyers that I represent, and they're not, um, they're not. There's no sense of urgency. They're not urgently looking. They are looking, but not urgently. And one of them is an investor, and I figured this out. They're a brand new investor. That's what I need to clarify that. A regular investor pretty much can identify properties pretty quickly that they like. I think the ones that I know, they can say, yeah, that works or that doesn't pretty quickly. But a brand new investor, they're they want to examine everything more so, I think, than somebody that's going to go and live in the property. It's amazing. So anyway, I've got a couple of these kind of situations. I'm just wondering, what do you think about keeping buyers engaged and yet not sucking up a ton of my time, and also not I don't know, there's not a great deal of urgency. It's fine. I think eventually we'll do a deal, but I don't want to use a lot of time to do that.
My first thought there is setting up proper expectations. I'd love to hear what Angela has to say about that because she deals with a lot of investors at different levels and as well as buyers. Angela, what's your advice there?
So I set up all of my buyers and including investors, even if they are just kind of on the fence with whatever criteria. If we've met, we've done a buyer orientation or a buyer presentation, and they're at least that serious, that we've discussed what they want and they're interested in, and I set them up on a search. And so every morning I get anywhere from 10 to 20 emails of sometimes just 5, it's not that many, but depending on how many active people I have, showing whatever is new. And it takes me literally 10 minutes to go through all of those and just do a quick pop through. And, I label it with what they're looking for. So it's just a very quick look through. If I see something that they might be interested in, then I text it to them. And I try to find something at least once a week if they're pretty active. If they're not that active, maybe I do every other week. And you can set that up. Some people I set up to just email me twice a week if they're not real interested, because I don't want to get an email every day. And then I'll just look through that twice a week and then feed out any properties I think might be a good match. My really, ready, I want to buy something tomorrow people, I set that up every morning to go out to me. So.
That's good. That sounds like a good pace, just to match the urgency with the pace that I'm going to worry about. I wouldn't have 5 a day for at least one of these buyers that I'm thinking of. There might be 5 a month in this, because we got a pretty tight box that we're working on because of location and price point and some other things. But so I think
I usually choose once a day per buyer. Like I don't usually do the immediate unless they're just really aggressively looking.
okay.
And that way you're not bogged down. And I look at it first thing in the morning, and then I text during my prospecting time. That's what I use to prospect with a lot of times.
Mhm.
Is, hey, just checking in. How are you doing? I found this property, just came in the market. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good right there. Just
Mhm.
the wording you just used there. Hey, this one just came on the market. What do you think?
Mhm.
That's all
And
you
then
got
for
to
a
do.
buyer that's really just like kicking, like if this particular property came on the market, then I usually just have it send it to me once or twice a week, and then I just look at it and review it and do the same thing.
Blake, and by the way, Angela, good job. Thank you. Just a couple more thoughts on that real quick, Blake. I think I understand your question being, how do you make sure a buyer doesn't suck up all your time and then they never buy, right? And that'd be the fear. Um,
That, and also though, to keep them engaged enough that they don't. I mean, this, and I'm thinking of one particular buyer. There's a couple of them. One is looking for a lake house, and they're eventually going to buy a lake house. There aren't many that come up, so they're they're going to live there. That's not an investor. But there just aren't many that they don't. There's not a lot of inventory available. They don't come up very often, and they have a pretty specific box that they're looking for. So I think that one probably is okay. But the investor that's going to be an investor, I should say, it'll be their first property, and and I think that's the one that I don't want them to waste a ton of my time, but I also think I need to keep a drip going so that one of these days they're going to wake up and say, "Hey, we need to go ahead and get this going. It's time."
so what you can do is the Angela process, setting up some kind of drip. Let me go back. In the old days, what we did with our buyers is we had a conversation in the very beginning to define, here's what I'm going to do, here's what you're going to do, here's what I'm going to do, here's what you're going to do. And so in the old days, before we had the technology of today, as far as the internet, we'd say, hey, I'm going to send you out a list of properties once a week. I want you to drive by those properties by yourself and make sure that you like the neighborhoods, because 50% of your decision is going to be the neighborhood. And you can't see that from the photo. So I just want you to drive by the neighborhood, see if you even like this property. And I want you to circle the ones you want to see and X through the ones that aren't going to work. And then call me up and let me know what they are. And we'll go then schedule a showing to see the ones you like. So see, I got them to participate in half of the process. You may want to set up something similar with your investor. Hey, you're trying to understand areas, you're trying to understand rentals and rental rates and so forth. I'm going to put you on this drip system where you're receiving by email these opportunities to become an investor. I want you to go drive by them and see if you even like the neighborhood. I want you to circle the ones you like and X through the ones you don't. And then, future investor, I want you to run the numbers on the cash flow to see if this property will cash flow or not based on what you want to do. If all that checks out, then I want you to contact me so I can get you into the property. See, future investor, my expertise is helping you negotiate an amazing deal once we get into the thickness of the transaction itself. You have to help me screen through the properties to decide which ones you want us to pursue, because only you can make that decision. Does that make sense? See, I've outlined the vision of the process, and they are heavily involved in that process of the screening of the properties, so that I'm only working with them at the end once they've identified some of the highest candidates. Otherwise, if you don't do that, and that's where we should have started, they're going to drag you through 50 properties that they're never going to buy because they're trying to learn what's out there. And that's not going to help you.
Yeah.
Oh, I just saw a note from Yevon on this. Let's see what he said. I'm going to open up my little chat because I missed it. Let's see. Yevon says, he usually shows the number of how much they lose on cash flow if they wait and look too long. Okay. And second, tell them a story, which I closed with another investor, like a success story to show them that it's possible. Yeah, I love relaying stories. And I'll give you one other quick idea here, Blake, that kind of ties into this, which is you really need to vet your buyer for motivation, whether they're owner occupant or non-owner occupant. You should spend a lot of time in your initial conversation with them and your follow-up conversations into when do you need to be in this home, or when do you want to own this investment property? Why do you want to own the home? Why do you want to own the investment property? And dig, 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 dig. Because if your investor doesn't really want to be an investor, doesn't really need to, they just thought they'd kind of check it out, you'd be like, I might not be the right agent for you. Okay. Um, but if they're serious and they've got a deadline and so forth, then yeah, I'm going to invest a little bit of time in them. Have you vetted your investor? Have they gone to a lender? Do you even know if they can qualify? Back to where we started our conversation, right? Can they actually purchase the investment property? Have they gone through that yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
So,
perfect.
yeah.
So at least you're working with a solid buyer.
Yeah. Yeah. They can definitely buy it. Yeah. They're both professionals in their careers and have a ton of things distracting them away. Well, and it's because of my experience as an investor that they came to me, is they know that I was doing it while also working another job. So,
Best advice I got for you, Blake, is this is where I can add the most value for you. I do X. This is what you're going to need to do to make this process work. You do Y.
yeah, that's good.
And you give them the heavy lift of driving around and looking at the properties and the exteriors and so forth, running
Yeah.
the numbers, right?
I like that. Plus, I like Yevin's idea of showing them the longer they wait, the loss that they're actually taking as investors. Hey, do you want this to be something that you are able to 10 years or 15 years from now be able to really be rolling in some cash from it? Or is it going to be 30 years from now before you can do that?
Right?
And let them think about where they are in their life, because that's part of it. We've talked a lot about that, actually, because I've shown them. I did one Saturday morning showing them some houses, which I totally think was a good thing, because we had a lot of good discussion. It was as much a needs analysis as anything while I was showing them some houses. But I did get some motivations there, and they've got a son who's, I guess he's maybe 13 or 14 now. And so they're just kind of thinking about down the road, what their age will be, where he's going to be, all these things. And they want to get started.
That's great. Are you purchasing this property so that you'll have a college fund for your little baby that was just born on Saturday, Tristan?
Yeah. Yeah. There you,
Right.
there you
Right.
go.
And paint that vision of why they're doing it in a timeline? Absolutely. Yeah, it ties into something that they want.
And maybe a question like, and what is it going to take for you to be ready to make an offer? Something like those questions that Mike was asking, but to really figure out, are they waiting because they want to save up more money for the remodel? Are they waiting because they have too much going on right now? Are they waiting for a particular property? What are they waiting for? And what would it take for them to make an offer? And that might help.
That's good. That's good.
Great question.
When are you going to know that it's the right place? Kind of, isn't that's another way of asking it, I guess. But yeah,
Here's
maybe not.
another good question for you, Blake. You got a first-time investor. What are you afraid of? What scares you about buying your first investment property? What would keep you up at night? Get that stuff on the table and see if it's resolvable or not. Because otherwise, they're never going to pull the trigger.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and like I was saying, those who've already taken the leap, they usually are much easier to, because they already, well, they're taking the leap. That's just it. So now they know they can make the next leap and the next leap. They know that.
And they have a process for evaluating. All right, good
True.
job, everyone. Thank you for being here for the production call. I'm going to wrap it up because we're running out of time. Let's switch gears and let's go into our huddle real quick. Number one thing you did last business day to move your business forward. Number one thing you're going to do today to move your business forward. Who would like to start?
I'll start. Number one thing yesterday was showing that buyer my listing. Number one thing for today is going to be, I have some showings actually booked for some of my landlord properties, so it'll be doing those.
Fantastic, Tristan. Working with clients is always good. Way to go. Good job. Good luck on that double in. Be interesting to find out what happens there. All right, next, who would like to go? Number one thing you did yesterday, number one thing you're going to do today to move your business forward.
Number one thing yesterday was getting the property a showing set up properly with the property that is currently occupied by a tenant. We had to negotiate several things, not negotiate, but work out several things with the tenant to get that done. So got that. And then today, because I am doing Pie Day for Thanksgiving, I'm going to hop on the call with Angela at 1 o'clock and kind of do my checklist of what I need to get handled, because it's I have started to getting some reservations. So.
Fantastic, Blake. Yeah, we're 9 days out to Thanksgiving. I'm guessing about a week out to your event. Does that sound right?
That's right. It's a week out. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I need to be making my final calls, or my calls. Haven't made any calls yet, so I need to make my calls. Hey, did you get my thing in the mail? And lock that down. So that's what I'm gonna just kind of review
Perfect.
before I.
Sorry. Yeah, the thing to remember there is it's the invitation. So when you're making those calls, it's the invitation. Just inviting people, and it's easy going. There's no risk or threat here. We're just inviting people to get pie. Pretty easy thing. Yeah. Maybe go make it a little easier. All right, good job, Blake. Good luck with that, and good luck with the Pie Day event. Who else would like to go? Number one thing you did yesterday, number one thing today.
I'm not sure if Evan can speak or if he wants to put his in the chat, but I'll go ahead and go. Yesterday, I set up a showing for the listing that we have for sale, that buyer showing. And then today, we extended our Pie Day invitation. So we had a deadline of Sunday night, but because the three of us are doing this, we went ahead and we're going to extend it. And today is those final calls and touching base, like what Blake was talking about. So that's today.
That's fantastic. What a great time to reach out to folks on your list and invite them to get the pie and join you at your Pie Day event. All right, let's see. I think we had a comment come in from Yevon. Yevon's doing the chat today. Yevon says, yesterday called people to invite them to my Pie Day event. Fantastic, Yevon. Good job. Today, going to do $1 million home worth inspection. So home inspection on $1 million home and make some video from it. Great. That sounds awesome. And then post it to social media. That's fantastic. Good job, Yevon. I can't wait to hear how that goes as you work on this property that's a little higher than your average sales price. See if you can't move into that market a little more. I know that's one of your goals. That's fantastic. Enjoy. Good luck with that. Let's see. Yesterday for myself, I've got this listing that I've been toying with a seller, and we're positioning it so that we're going to actually go into the market to this weekend with a coming soon, and see if we can't drum up a buyer. We're trying to sell as is property that needs a lot of work. And I'll just tell you real quick, the idea there, a lot of people, again, try to push away from what the situation is or pretty it up. I'm leaning into it. I'm calling it a handyman special. I'm calling it a fixer-upper. I'm just, AI would go crazy. It would try to make this all pretty. And no way. I'm just saying this property is junk. You don't want this thing. Stay away from it unless you know what you're doing. And then I know I'm going to attract the right person who's going to come in to buy this property. That's my goal. We'll see if it plays out. Anyway, hope that that's what I'm doing. Hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here. Have a productive and fantastic day today.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.